AI is taking over. There's just no doubt about it. And even 2 years ago, I feel like we were spending several $1,000s a month on content generation from human writers that were doing all of that. At this point, we really only utilize AI-driven content primarily, or, maybe human-assisted AI content anyway. And that's, I think, SEO, at least doing the content generation side of it. But it's also created a whole kind of, new, interesting sort of gambit as well, where we can produce infinitely more content, faster.
For us on the marketing side of things with the agency, we've always tried to be somewhat of a frontier firm. So we've always kind of focused on, the evolving algorithms and, EEAT and how that's kind of changed. And really with PR as well, especially that being more important now with the citation side of things, that we're trying to make sure we get those backlinks and get those opportunities to have those PR moments just to increase that authoritativeness. So, and then FAQs, of course, that's starting to become more of a popular aspect of being able to get into the AEO aspect.
Now, as we see people doing more searches overall and getting the zero-click searches, we definitely see some of the organic traffic dropping because people are seeing those results, but our clients are no less visible. And I know we'll talk more about some of this probably later, but our clients are no less visible. They're just visible in more places.
I think we have two paths. We have one that's the how do we still track the SEO, the revenue forecasting, the full down funnel, which we have some sophisticated methods on our end to help give clients some visibility into that. We're also doing the how did you hear about us surveys, things like that help give us a little bit more. And then really with the AI side, it's more about visibility, demand creation, and then also kind of understanding that there's probably some direct component to that, and looking and measuring and trying to find ways of how we're tying direct with SEO initiatives.
4 great guests today with us on the SEO on Air podcast. We're excited to have all 4 of you here. I'm going to give you each a chance to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll start with Jerry.
Hey, so my name is Jerry Van Vort. I'm a VP Customer Success at a company called Wada. Also assist with customer success at a marketing and PR agency called Nivel. Our focus is in mostly the specialty sector in the medical practice, from everything from integrative medicine to oral surgery to plastic surgery. We work with a lot of more local SEO type situations. And my background has been in customer success for about a decade now. My MBA is in concentrations in marketing, so SEO is always kind of a little bit of a part of that background in my life. So
awesome, Jerry. We're excited to have you. Thanks for joining us. David Sanchez, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm David Sanchez. I'm the founder of Digitalis Medical. So we're a healthcare marketing agency that's full scope, but mainly focusing in healthcare, especially behavioral health and high competition specialties in healthcare. My background is I'm a nurse. I started an addiction treatment center and then ended up firing my marketing agency, deciding, we need to do a better job. And that's how I ended up starting Digitalis. But we especially focus on SEO, content marketing, and paid advertising.
Awesome. David, thanks for joining us. Dave Black, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, my name is David Black. I run Ready, Set, Search. We're a digital marketing agency focused on highly regulated verticals. We work with a lot of clients in the legal space, in healthcare, as well as financial services. Primarily, our bread and butter is in the mental health space. So like David, I have a lot of experience in that. My background before starting my agency was actually working at a company called Charlie Health, which we grew into one of the largest IOPs in the country. We primarily focus on SEO, paid social, and paid search.
So I think it's very unique to have 2 people with a background that's not so aligned with SEO being on the call today. It'll be fun to ask a few questions to dig into that. Adam Loveridge, go ahead and give us a quick intro.
Yeah, I'm Adam Loveridge. I'm the CEO of Blue Forge Marketing. I am the apparently only one on here that doesn't want to work with white collar companies. And we've been working with predominantly MEP contractors for the last 15 years as a business. We're also in remodeling, cleaning, and a handful of other blue collar niches. I guess we also do a lot of SEO and a lot of paid ads, predominantly on Google and Yelp. I would say, and that's really at the end of the day, that's really it.
Well, that's the diversity we're looking for. We got a few different industries we're in. We have a lot of different backgrounds, and even Jerry coming from more like the customer service side of things. We're going to have some questions about what feedback you're getting from customers as today's field of marketing is evolving so quickly. We're going to dive right into some questions. I'm going to leave the discussion up to you four gentlemen to just engage with each other and try to find ways to help each other learn something today. But the first question is diving into that AI side of things. So how is everyone adapting to the rise of AI overviews and answer engines? Are you actually creating content with those in mind? And is it still more of like a wait and see type of situation where you're not necessarily trusting the AI overviews and still trying to figure out what the strategy will be for your company moving forward? Tell us a little bit about how you're adapting to the current situation with search evolving.
Well, if nobody's going to jump right in, I'll take the first to answer this one, Koa. I mean, AI is taking over. There's just no doubt about it. And even 2 years ago, I feel like we were spending several $1,000s a month on content generation from, human writers, that were doing all of that. At this point, we really only utilize, AI-driven content primarily, or maybe human-assisted AI content anyway, and that's frankly taken a lot of the cost out of doing. I think SEO, at least doing the content generation side of it. But it's also created a whole kind of new interesting sort of gambit as well, where we can produce infinitely more content faster. And so I think that's been kind of what we've seen on the content side of it. And then when you actually start getting into the AI search, what we're seeing a lot is really just, frankly, the same type of content marketing that we've always been doing, which is just producing high quality content, right? And so our approach has always been they ask you answer format. And it's a book out there. I can't quite remember the name of the author in this particular moment, but the short of it is getting our clients to really share their expertise. We have found that in addition to getting just high quality content out there that really is based on FAQs, different things that our clients would answer, by putting in charts and tables and other things along those lines, we see the AI search engines pick that up quite a bit more. Because and that's true of Google as well. So it really, we haven't seen a massive difference in terms of optimizing for AI versus optimizing for Google and the search engines, Google obviously in particular. But what we are seeing too, and I would say that this is not even necessarily like an AI specific thing, but listicles seem to be something that AI really likes to grab onto. Top 10 companies in, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is that Google's been doing that same thing now for several years. And if you look at Google, it's really just a list of lists. Aside from that, then, we've noticed that on the local SEO side of it, really just over, digital marketing overall, being on those key citations is still a big deal. And I think a lot of what we're also doing too is interrogating the LLMs. So as an example, who are the best plumbers in Salt Lake City, right? And when it comes back up and your client isn't listed there, then we start interrogating chat and say, okay, well, why isn't, this particular company listed among these resources? And it will go through and really, tell you like, here's our criteria in essence and why your company isn't showing up. And then it's just as simple as, simple, right? But it's ultimately then making sure that you're giving the LLMs kind of what they want, just like we've always been giving Google what it wants. So I don't see it as being a massive, oh no, AI is taking over. What do we do? It's just been tweaking how we've always done content marketing, still producing quality content, and just, playing the game.
Yeah, I would say that to Adam's point too, for us on the marketing side of things with the agency, we've always tried to be somewhat of a frontier firm. So we've always kind of focused on, the evolving algorithms and, EEAT and how that's kind of changed. And really with PR as well, especially that being more important now with the citation side of things, that we're trying to make sure we get those backlinks and get those opportunities to have those PR moments just to increase that authoritativeness. So, and then FAQs, of course, that's starting to become more of a popular aspect of being able to get into the AEO aspect.
I can say a little bit different on the regulated verticals from what Adam had on the content side of things. We are sticking more with human writers. I think a lot of this has to do with the expertise that they can provide for, mental health topics. We've tried doing a lot more AI content. had a lot of hallucinations and sources and things like that we were spending a lot more time having to go and fix some of that. So we've started to use AI more for some of the general overarching processes that we know we can just automate, and then have some manual overview on that. So when we're doing briefs, things of that nature, we're overlooking that, but using more AI. But we're still relying on deep expertise in the mental health field to help provide our content, because we're finding the EAT factor is just so high for having actual experts write those type of pieces.
Yeah, I would add to that. I would say in our practice, we actually optimize basically both ways. We do a hybrid combination. So if we're working with a specialty practice, what I really recommend is the best case scenario is to have somebody on their team that actually has time to write. It's not that often that you see that, but like a nurse practitioner or a doctor on the team that actually has time to at least either write it completely from scratch, which is not going to happen most of the time. But usually what happens is, well, if they have somebody who has time to flesh things out, we'll create an outline. We'll do the content strategy. We'll create an outline for them, and then they flesh it out. But either way, we need to optimize it for SEO, because it's not, they're not going to get results just writing by themselves, because they don't understand the concepts behind it. But as far as optimizing for search engines versus AEO, really what we see is that they got to have the exact type of structured content that Adam was talking about. If there's anything that's based on a specific keyword, like any blog post or any services page that's tailored towards a specific item, we want to have an FAQ section on every single one of those pages addressed towards the specific questions that people are asking for. That also the structured content like charts and tables, bullet points, numbered lists, all of those embedded YouTube videos, plenty of images, all of those together, they really work together. And when we saw ChatGPT start to increase the number of searches over the last few years, our clients' overall traffic it did soar. It did increase a lot, because we were already doing those things that we should have been doing in the first place. Now, as we see people doing more searches overall and getting the zero-click searches, we definitely see some of the organic traffic dropping, because people are seeing those results, but our clients are no less visible. And I know we'll talk more about some of this probably later, but our clients are no less visible. They're just visible in more places.
I think I had a few follow-up questions I wanted to ask, because I like where the conversation was going, and like content mattering so much. And then also just doing the research to make sure you really understand what your customer offers, so that you can produce unique content. Because I think that's where there's a lot of, I don't know the right term for this, but just like a flood of content hitting everything, right? Everyone can produce it so quickly now that there's like a level playing field now from the content production side that wasn't there before. And now differentiating your content, but then finding a way even beyond differentiating your content. How else are you establishing that differentiation? We may dive into that a little bit later, but I think talking about like the zero-click aspect, David, like you kind of just touched on, there's been a large push from customers, I'd say, and Jerry, you can touch on this yourself, that just keyword rankings or organic traffic may not be enough now. There really is a push for generating revenue from that budget that maybe wasn't always understood as detailed as it seems to be evolving in today's marketing field. SEO used to be all about clicks. That's not where all the value is coming from anymore. How are you all thinking about measuring success when the visibility doesn't necessarily translate into traffic? And more condensed, how are you actually tracking the revenue or conversion from all the different avenues that it's coming from? Tell us a bit about how you're kind of navigating a search everywhere optimization from a revenue standpoint.
It's an interesting question. I'll say something to that, because really the biggest thing is when you can't track everything, like if there's not a click or a view, you can't necessarily track everything. It's just not possible. But one of the things that we like our clients to do is to make sure that they're actually talking to people, finding out where they found them. I would say that's probably the most important thing. They need to understand their customer. They need to talk to their customers. If they ask them where they found them, I found you guys on Grok or ChatGPT. That helps a lot, makes things more clear.
No, that's a good point. And that's something that I think we try to do with a lot of our clients as well. I think we're in a fortunate area where we work with a lot of specialty practices, but then we also have a platform that kind of works in conjunction with our SEO as kind of like a funnel. So when somebody's referred to, say, from a general doctor to a specialist, and that referral form comes through, we get that into our platform right away. And then we send basically YouTube video content of the practice speaking to the procedure or a little bit about the procedure or the practice itself to kind of get that patient into a funnel. And then we tie all that video content back to the Google Analytics as well. and then have areas in our platform that feed back to the website so that we're kind of keeping all that traffic in-house and help educating the patient at the same time. And then that, really parlays into kind of closing the gap and preventing them from going online and doing a lot of searches that might find them other providers.
I'm impressed with the level of detail that you guys, get into. I mean, it isn't to say that we don't track what's happening, or track the untrackable. I think at the end of the day, and maybe this is true in the legal and medical spaces more, as well. But when it comes to our trade contractors, it's still just the overall adage, is the phone ringing? Or is it not? Are we getting form fills for our services? Are we getting submissions for bid estimates? That sort of thing. And a couple of years ago, we started getting heavily into CTV. And we've known for a while that Google, the search engines and the LLMs in particular are really looking heavily at brands. And we've seen a direct correlation between running, say, a CTV ad, for over an area where we're touching, people sometimes 10, 12, 15 times over a period of several months, and a direct correlation in terms of brand traffic, people looking for, whatever heating and air conditioning in that particular, city that we're working with, right? Not a broad general keyword term, but the actual name of the brand. And so our big focus has been really then pushing, heavily on that brand, really informing the knowledge graph on Google, looking, we're starting to be able to track, and I know this is coming up later, brand sentiment, different things along those lines. But with some of the tools that we have available now, we're starting to be able to track brand sentiment in the LLMs as well. And I really think that gone are the days where you're going to get proper attribution of almost anything. And we've seen, you've heard all these reports, Gartner came out and said, chat's going to take 26% of Google search, right? And all of this other stuff. But what we know happens, because we've just talked with people as they come in as leads. Hey, I went out and did my research on ChatGPT, but invariably, what are they going to do once they've pulled their top 2-3 companies that they want to go and look at in that area? They're going to go back to Google. They're going to Google the name of the business, which is going to create, brand traffic in Search Console, right? We won't see that referral traffic necessarily in analytics, but we are measuring more than anything now the impact that all of our digital advertising methods have on the actual brand itself. And so, again, trying to get good attribution is becoming more and more challenging, but we can still track leads. We can still track revenue. And we know whether or not we're going up, down, and sideways and combining all of our campaigns together, whether or not we're generating a return on investment. And so that's what I think we've seen a lot more of is just almost like as much as we want to be able to track everything, as we've gotten more heavily into branding activities that cannot be tracked or can, you never know where that attribution is going to come from. And so, it isn't to say that we've sort of just given up on it, but just, again, really looking at pure ROI. Because at the end of the day, that's, I think, at least for the types of clients that we serve, that's all that really matters is, are we growing? Are we keeping our guys on the road? And are we outfitting new trucks every year? So that's my take on that anyway.
Yeah, I think mine echoes a lot of what you're saying there, Adam, in that, I think we have two paths. We have one that's the how do we still track the old SEO, the revenue forecasting, the full down funnel, which we have some sophisticated methods on our end that help give clients some visibility into that. We're also doing the how did you hear about us surveys, things like that help give us a little bit more. And then really with the AI side, it's more about visibility, demand creation, and then also kind of understanding that there's probably some direct component to that and looking and measuring and trying to find ways of how we're tying direct with SEO initiatives. Because a lot of people, to your point, Adam, they're not just even Googling, they're seeing your website in these LLMs, and then they're just literally typing in the website name. So we're trying to kind of go across all of those different platforms and kind of inform clients that, hey, we don't got to look at just purely revenue, which we did beforehand. We have to also look at how we're doing this more in a visibility and awareness style play with some of these AI engines now. So we're trying to kind of have a blended approach there.
I think that there's a question that's like forming in my head, and I'm hoping I can transfer it to you guys and make it make sense here. But with AI becoming so popular, we see the memes on like LinkedIn about like CEOs saying, we want AI. And they're like, well, what do you want it to do? And they're like, we don't know. When do you want it? Now. They want it, but they don't necessarily know how it's going to work for them. Adam, I feel like with the local companies, there's a question of if AI can't produce ROI, like if your investments into AI marketing cannot produce ROI quickly enough, they may not want to spend the money there immediately because they're looking for typically a quick conversion or a quick phone call coming from the marketing budget. I'm curious if that's the opposite case with some of the other companies that might be building more of a brand and see it as like an investment into their future of AI. And I think I just want to ask the question vaguely. Are your customers are they spending on marketing services expecting AI overviews to drive results now? Or are they spending money with you guys hoping that you can drive future engagement through AI overviews? Or even the question of, are they currently dedicating any of their budget to AI overview results, or are they strictly driving traditional methods at this point? Let's just open it up to everybody on this and tell me a little bit about what your customers are asking for or what they're expecting from AI overviews.
I would say for us, there's a lot of hand-holding still with practices and people that we work with to get them to understand the importance of it. We'll have a few clients who are very, future focused, who want to stay, ahead of the curve. We're always trying to educate all of our customers about, the changing dynamics and what they need to do to maintain that visibility. We do a lot of different services from, testimonials and things like that to, get some more reputation on sites. So, it assists us in selling different services as well. So as things change, that actually helps us kind of grow as a firm. But it does take, some effort, and it has to be demonstrated in track record as well. So, we're fortunate enough to have all of our clients in a pretty good ranking position. And so we've gained their trust. But it does take, a little bit of convincing that they need to continue the effort to work with us and engage with us as we need to continue to evolve.
I guess the question too is, are they specifically asking you to prove your AI knowledge? Like, are they requesting that you become an expert for them and show them why it's worth it?
Yeah, that's what we try to do. We try to create enough content that we deliver to them to kind of educate them as things change. So they're not having to really do a lot of searching, that they're able to get a lot of information from us directly. And then that helps kind of, create our authoritativeness with them as well and build that trust. But yeah,
I've got a little bit that I can add into that. We got to look at sort of at the lower end of of the totem pole, if you will, in terms of the type of clientele that we're working with. I would say they're probably less sophisticated, have been investing longer in SEO, different things along these lines. Recently, we took on a garage door company here in Utah that's definitely the largest player here in the state, and up in the approaching 50 million in revenue. And it was interesting because we started with them and all of a sudden they started noticing a really significant drop out of Search Console. And, and we're kind of wondering if maybe another SEO company was sabotaging, or the company on the way out was maybe sabotaging, what's happening. And I went and looked at it and was pretty quickly able to just figure out that the traffic that they were losing was because of AI overviews, right? They had some articles that were ranking nationally around, how to program garage door remotes, different things along these lines, right? And so, they were getting a lot of traffic to the website for these types of searches. And so when all of a sudden that traffic started just, going on a straight line down, they freaked out a little bit, right? So I went through and I showed them, hey, here's the reality, guys, is that people searching nationally for how to program a LiftMaster remote are not going to turn into clients for you, right? And as we look at the commercial traffic for, garage door repair near me, right? Garage door installation, different, keywords that we know are actually driving revenue. We haven't lost, anything at all in that regard. And so what was kind of interesting is that they ended up taking that back to the CEO of the company. And then she turned around and was like, we want to actually start to dominate the AI overviews so that our citation is winding up in the top of all of those. And so they've actually been having us go through and create even more, valuable content that we can get ranked, either on a national level or on a local level, right? But one way or another, they want their company showing up, everywhere. And they compete directly with like Tommy Mello's, A1 garage doors, that sort of thing, at least especially in the state of Utah and some neighboring states. And so from their perspective, they do want to invest more heavily into this because they want dominance, right? They want digital dominance. They want to be able to show up over and over and over again, no matter where anybody is searching, regardless of whether or not it's going to turn into a customer. Now, maybe that's an ego thing, but, one way or another, I think that by still, we've talked a lot about brands, right? And blue collar brands, white collar brands, it doesn't matter. We're at the end of the day, it really still is about, building a brand online. And so I kind of look at it like, at the end of the day, even though we may not be getting the same amount of traffic to the website, we're having to spend less in server resources to be able to dish that up anyway. But one way or another, our brand is still getting out there and our brand is still being seen. And, you kind of come back to that basic law of marketing, right? Somebody's got to be exposed to your brand at least a half a dozen times before they're going to start to have any sort of brand recognition. So we are seeing where our larger companies that we work with that have the marketing budgets that really do want to dominate not only locally, but just dominate in terms of, their brand overall. They're really embracing that and wanting to push it down the line and are very much leveraging AI to be able to do that. But doesn't mean that SEO and all the other ways that we tactically generate lead flow on their behalf is necessarily going away. It's just shifting and molding into something kind of new, unique and fun. And that's been digital marketing for as long as I've been, doing it for a few decades. So we're embracing that change and just rolling with the punches of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk briefly on it. I mean, the way our clients are seeing it, they are trying to ask about, hey, how do we win more in AI overviews? How are we winning more in like a ChatGPT context and things of that nature? And specifically asking for that. I think there's a quick win strategies where they're looking for things that, hey, how do we do this that we know may not last for the long term, but we can get in there quicker? And then what are we doing to kind of set ourselves up more for long-term visibility, long-term growth? So there's both of those kind of approaches that we're taking. We're getting clients quick wins on some content that we know is there, but some of the content we know is upper funnel that we just aren't gonna, AI overviews are gonna dominate it. People are gonna just look in ChatGPT. It's great for us to be cited in, but like it's not really gonna give us a lot more lead volume probably. But then there's also these longer term plays where we're trying to build a better entity around them as a leader in the space. And that's more or less what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I would say I'm aligned, kind of a blend between both of you guys. Really, clients come to us as I think it's kind of more of a decision making thing for them. They want to make sure that if they're hiring us to help with content and just content marketing in general and SEO, they want to make sure that the work that we do is also going to help with the AI tools. They want to make sure that we're not archaic, that we're really on top of our game, and the work that we do includes that. So we haven't had people hire us directly just to work on their AI visibility. It's more in your SEO or in your content work, am I going to be more visible for AI? And how do you guys do that? And they just wanted us to explain to them how it's going to work and what are we going to do that's different from just writing a few blog posts that's really going to make a difference for them.
I think I really appreciate that. The next question that kind of guides into is the brand question. And brand has had more weight, I feel like, in the last 12 months for me than ever before. And AIs are obviously recommending brands inside of the overviews. There's a lot of noise around the right way to track AI overview results. And that's one of the things I think from like a listener perspective, it's really nice to hear what other agencies are doing to try to navigate the many different options for AI overview results. Tell me a little bit about how you all are communicating these results to your customer. What do you find the most effective way, or what tools do you use to communicate overview results?
I can dive into this a little bit. So, there's a couple of different tools we're using for this. It depends on the client. I'd say the one that we've seen that's kind of trying to lead the way is Profound. Something that we're seeing a lot of these tools do is they're using logged out users, or there's just a lot of use cases where it doesn't pertain. So we're really trying to like what they're doing with persona building. And we've been kind of working with them and trying to figure and understand how that's going to evolve. But a lot of these tools, we're trying to get more into like, hey, what's our ICP actually searching for? And let's try and get what their results would kind of be. Because ChatGPT, these engines can be quite personalized. And so we know we're not getting one for everyone, but we're trying to make it more specific to our customer and trying to add some of that persona research to do that. So then we're reporting more on, how is this persona looking for visibility per se, rather than generics. I think we can't use the same methods we used in traditional search tracking. So we're trying to kind of be a little bit ahead of the game. I wouldn't say it's perfect yet, but that's more of where we're trying to take it with our clients and showing where visibility isn't just from a generic standpoint, but more with kind of their user journey, with those users that would be a good fit for them when they're searching those type of things.
Yeah, that's an interesting way. I haven't tried using that method, but that is interesting. I mainly use Ahrefs because they do have a good AI overview and several different tools. And I saw an inverse correlation as a direct connection between as the AI overviews traffic goes up, some of our clients' overall rankings has gone down a little bit, because they are really visible, but obviously they're getting more visibility from the AI tools.
I personally like what both of you guys are doing. I think it's fantastic. And I'll, Koa, just to kind of second your point anyway, we've been paying, and I think, really Google and the LLMs, Google in particular has been paying a lot more attention to brands. I would say really since the helpful, content updates back in 2023, when, we saw some kind of major shifts in the search engines. And so that's really when we started focusing a lot more on the semantic web, a lot more on entity associations, things along those lines as well. And frankly, doing a lot more keyword research and other things along those lines on Wikipedia than we were at this point with like Google, the Google keyword tool and that sort of thing. So we've been really kind of measuring then brands, whether that's, looking at the knowledge graph, so that when we go search in a particular area, right, with like a a geoset browser, how many pages of Google search results are being taken up by brand mentions for our particular company, right? Whether that's yp.com or Web 2.0 properties that we're creating, social media properties, that sort of thing. And so it's kind of uncanny and also convenient, in my opinion, that the LLMs are also really looking heavily at brands and brand sentiment in particular. And again, we find that just kind of interrogating those really does make quite a bit of difference. The tool that we've started using that, I can't take any credit for, the ingenuity of is Search Atlas. Manic Bon over there. I don't know if anybody else is playing around with their, with their stuff, but that's what we've really decided to move to as a management platform anyway. And they're leveraging AI in terms of our ability to go through and very quickly clean and press a website as an example, right? Because when we usually will come in and there's all sorts of problems wrong with somebody's digital presence, and the name of the game is speed. And I think that's what AI really gives us the ability to do. And so we can go through now and clean up titles and metas and inject NLP keyword terms and entity associations and all of these different things really, really fast. I mean, really fast. And so, the most recently, what they've started doing in recognizing the trends here for LLMs is that they're now including that in the actual, Site Explorer reports. And so we can go look at specifically ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity and the different large language models and look at brand sentiment, look at how much content we actually are showing up for, in the various searches and different things along those lines. And while none of it is perfect, because obviously I think we're all still adapting and trying to figure out how the hell to track all of this stuff. The fact of the matter is that we can progressively show to our clients, look, we're increasing brand sentiment. We're increasing the number of AI overviews that you guys are actually showing up in. And we're starting to see where your content is more regularly being served up in those citations inside of ChatGPT, inside of Perplexity. And, I think it was David's point that a lot of this is personalized, right? The more you're training AI, the more it kind of knows what you're looking for. And so we're never going to get outside of that personalization any more than we would have with Google before. But I think we are starting to see some sophisticated tools coming out to be able to track that. And I would just say, again, it really does boil down to if you focus on improving the brand for that company and getting your brand out into as many channels as possible and go on, just creating good quality content. We've heard EEAT thrown around, right? But it's like, good quality content at the end of the day. That's still the key, in my opinion. And I think maybe last point on this too, Koa, and we've talked obviously on the link building side of this, but we're seeing with those brand mentions, be almost as, if not just as important as links, at the end of the day. And so, I heard press releases thrown around earlier. We're doing a lot with press releases. We're doing a lot with creating listicles out there, on topically relevant, authoritative blogs, right? So, the name of the game is still digital marketing. It's just that, we can't necessarily rely on just one or two channels to drive all the results at this point, and really have to be looking at it comprehensively. And what I love about that is that it's starting to really separate, in my opinion, the wheat from the chaff in terms of legitimate digital marketing companies from fly-by-nights.
All right. I have a little bit of a bonus question here that, again, is stirring in my mind as I want to ask this. But one thing that I saw when I worked for an agency that did a large scale, like had thousands of customers, was there was a complexity when you're dealing with maybe a local dentist and you're going to have 10 other local dentists that you also service. And how do you determine if you're going to be able to work with them and support them the way you should? Are you giving priority or anything that can complicate that relationship? It seems like there was enough space on page one for multiple companies to be supported with SEO, and then things got more competitive and it gets more intense. And fighting for that position seems to be more complex than it ever felt before. With that said, Adam, you mentioned one of your customers wanting to dominate AI overviews. And I think that's a fun way of putting it because they're investing aggressively on trying to be the solution. And I'm curious, do you all believe that small companies are going to be able to compete with large companies for AI overview space? Or is it a bit like one company taking all of page one and not sharing any potential there, forcing everybody onto page two?
I actually really like that. I like that idea because it gives actually people more of an opportunity, even smaller businesses, more of an opportunity. This is the first year that I've had multiple clients actually come and approach me and hire me because they found me on ChatGPT or Grok, which hadn't happened in the past. But I think more people are just getting used to doing that. Like that's what they want their customers to do, right? So I think if we do things right, they will get the right results. Obviously, that's easier said than done. But the same thing with our clients. They have more opportunities. If there are more tools people are using to find a company to hire, they're going to have more opportunities. So the question is, whoever you're working with, what are you doing to make sure you're visible in more places? It's really about the brand. And the size of the company doesn't necessarily equate with building a brand. Small companies can build brands too. They just have to have their dollars more focused on their ideal client or their ideal customer. Whether it is a garage door company or whether it's a local doctor, if you focus your dollars, whether it's $1,000 a month, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, if you're focusing on who exactly you want to reach, you've got more opportunities now. That's the way I see it.
I think for us to, on that dominance portion, before we even take a client, we kind of interview them before they even interview us to get a sense of what are they looking for and where do they want to be in the market. We want people to work with us that want to win, that want to dominate in their space. And so we do, work pretty exclusively with only one practice per, a radius, depending on kind of the market, the size of the geography and the position and where they're located. And because we do want to be, number one in that space, and we do want our client to be number one in that space. The challenge comes in is when we maybe we eventually lose a client or they get acquired by a large organization and, they reduce their expenses, and then we have to find somebody else in the new market, and then we're essentially competing with ourselves again. But, luckily, as things change and evolve so fast, it gives us so many new opportunities to continue to, improve on ranking in many different aspects.
I'll jump in here really quick and say that, I maybe taking this a slightly different direction. I do think that what I've seen is a trend in terms of ranking, in terms of, we're always looking very, very heavily at like the local SEO heat maps, right? That will kind of show a general area of, okay, here's how we're ranking. We've noticed that over the last several years with Google that they have systematically tried to just crunch that down to where we're getting infinitely less spreads in map rankings, and infinitely less traffic and infinitely less phone calls. But what I'm starting to see happen, and we have a trenchless company here in Utah that we just recently started working with, right? And we are seeing that the specialization, both in the large language models and on Google, is a huge, huge, huge differentiator in terms of developing a brand. And so I say all that to say that if I'm talking with, let's just say, a general plumber, and he's looking at getting started out, and it really hasn't done much in the way of SEO and different things along these lines. Oftentimes what we'll say is like, well, what services do you really want to focus your time and energy and attention onto? And, which ones would you rather not like to touch? Right. And so, like, as an example, there's a company here in my backyard that specifically works with water heaters, right? We work with a company that only does trenchless sewer line repair. And what we've seen is that when those particular companies decide to really just focus on like the one thing that they can be the absolute best at. We've been talking about in agencies. I mean, all of you guys are in niche agencies, right? We serve doctors, we serve lawyers, we serve, in our case, right, MEP contractors predominantly, and, maybe a few home service contractors. But, we have been trying to, as much as possible when we're working with these small guys, to say, listen, if your goal is to go out and compete with the $100 million private equity funded, businesses that are being bought up in droves, as part of this massive roll up that's been happening in that space, you're going to get your ass handed to you. But conversely, if we can niche you down into something that you can do really, really well, and we toss that into the business name, even if it's just creating a DBA and saying, have your general plumbing company over here if you want, and that's fine. We'll be able to get maybe a 5 to 8 mile spread if you can get the review velocity and all of these things. And, we'll be able to generate some phone calls for searches like plumbers near me. But if we can niche you down to doing trenchless sewer line repair, or if we can niche you down to do water heaters only, or if we can, create this additional, in essence, listing and brand out there that specializes on one thing, and we align all of our content with that, you start to be seen as an expert in that very, very small little space. And when we look at how far, in our particular case for this trenchless company, they're ranking across the entire Wasatch Front in Google Maps. I mean, we are killing everybody, absolutely killing them. They went from doing like a dig or two a week to being booked 6 to 8 weeks out within 90 days. Okay. So, I mean, this is still, super fast type of like Wild West SEO that we used to see when Google Places first came out, right? And they're also just crushing the LLMs right now. If you type in anything sewer line repair, you can do this, Koa, if you want. While we're sitting here, man, you'll see Utah trenchless come up. Okay. Because it's so specialized and they're so geared in semantically to Utah, and they're so geared into trenchless sewer line repair that both the large language models and Google are giving them preferential treatment to somebody who's more of a generalist plumber who might also do digs. Right. So that's, to me, it's really about just good positioning overall. And again, if I'm talking with somebody that's got a small budget and they're like, we want to go compete with the, $100 million company in our backyard, it's like, great. Pick a service, pick one thing that you guys are going to be absolutely incredible at. And we're going to develop all your content around that so that you are a product specialist in that thing. But if what you're really trying to do is go and compete against, go try to get after all of these 27 services that you offer, when you've got these guys throwing $1 million a month into marketing and advertising and you can afford a couple thousand, you're going to get just landslided, right? And so it's got to be about smarter competition, smarter positioning, smarter branding. And that's a lot of what we're really starting to do with these, with these blue collar companies is, guys, listen, if you really want to make a dent in the marketplace, let's become a big fish in a very small pond. Then eventually we can expand out and try to take you into more areas. But right now it's about let's get you, positioned really, really well, get you doing a lot of business, and then we can always go up from there.
All right, guys, we're just about out of time. I love what just happened in this conversation, because I asked a question that very much could have been taken as like a marketing so hard right now. There's these big players that can dominate it. And talking to agency owners, you guys just crushed it on talking about all the opportunity that's available. And even just talking about like navigating that. I'm thinking about the local, like we talk about local services, but we'll talk about a local doctor. If there's already huge hospitals that are dominating for certain things, don't try to take their position, find your place and go after it. I think Wild West was the term that came to mind, Adam. There's so much land available. Go out and claim some of it right now, because it seems so early still that it's still low hanging fruit that's available for these companies that are going to go after it. I love that. I wish we had more time. I really enjoyed this conversation. We'll keep you around for just a minute after the recording. We can make sure that it all gets uploaded correctly. But we really appreciate you being on today. And thank you for joining us for another episode of SEO on Air.
Thanks, Koa.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.